In this video, we're going to learn about components, variants, and variables. Components are going to be extremely useful for any element which is going to be repeated multiple times throughout your website project. Think about elements such as buttons, headers, footers, and much more. Now, we're going to create a component out of this button. And as you can see under the layers panel, this button is simply a stack with a text element. Now, in order to create a component, simply right-click and you can see this create component call to action, which you can prompt also using this keyboard shortcut. Now, the moment that we create a new component, we're going to have this menu prompt, which essentially asks us what is going to be the name of the component. You can always edit this name, so we're simply going to stick to this default button. And as you can see, the moment that we clicked on create, we are now being redirected to a dedicated components view. So this is going to be one step out of the home, and here we're going to have granular options on the components and the variants. Now that we have the component, we can go back to the original view, and we're going to notice that we're going to have the component icon right here. Now, in order to edit the component, you can actually either double click on the component or simply select it and click over here on edit component. Now we're going to create a variable, and what a variable is another version of that same component. So for example, I can create a variable of this component where we have by default black text and a white fill. And I'm going to rename both of these components to button black, and then the second one is going to be bottom white. Now if you go back on the home, now you're going to notice that we have a new drop down under the component section, which is going to allow us to toggle between the white and the black version of the component. In order to simplify things even further, you can start using names which are going to be easier to browse through, such as simply black or white. And now we're going to explore a very useful feature, which is going to be the variables. Now see that I have this button, which by default is going to be black. But see that I wanted to have this as a dark button instead of just having it each and every time in a black color. What you can do is to simply click on the fill once you select the component, and you can create a variable. Now the variable in this case is going to be color, since we want to change the background color of this button while still maintaining the same component. So by default it's going to be black, but we are going to be able to change it moving forward. So if you go back to the home, you can see that now we have a new variable, which is the background color, which is going to enable us to change the color of this component while still maintaining the same basic principles that we established just a moment ago. Now at this point, one other really useful element which you're going to use all the time when building websites is going to be the hover or pressed states. Now the hover state can be added by simply clicking on this section below. So to recap, on the right you can add variants, and below you can add hover or pressed states. Now we're going to select hover, and at this point you can see how we created this second component, which is going to be the hover state, and we're simply going to, for the sake of illustration, we're going to change the rotation of this button just slightly, and we're going to click on play. And as you can see, once I hover over this button, we now have this rotation effect. Now you can also add a press state, which say for the sake of demonstration, once I press, so basically once I click on this button, it's going to tilt even further. So you can see how this is going to help you create all sorts of different micro animations in a very fast and efficient way. So this is pretty much it when it comes to components, variants, and variables in Framer. Now I invite you to experiment with these concepts that you just learned and think through about how you can structure your design system, quote unquote, in order to create websites that are going to be easy to maintain and scalable in the long term.